the LA Chargers officially have their new head coach, and basically to nobody's surprise, it is the man himself, Jim Harbaugh. This is the most high-profile hiring of any NFL team in this cycle. It was essentially telegraphed weeks or months ago, depending on how you view the timeline. Essentially, I view it as soon as the Chargers season started to mellow out, and I think it was even before the Herbert injury, this was essentially written in stone. There has been a lot of reporting around the matter of that Harbaugh was going to stay at Michigan, that he was going to maybe go to the Falcons. But, I mean, to me, if he was going to leave Michigan for any team, it was going to be the Chargers. And I think for good reason. We'll get into it. His resume is stacked. He's coached in college. He's coached in the NFL, has achieved high success at both levels. His most recent experience in the NFL was obviously with the San Francisco 49ers, where he was the coach for a handful of years there. That was the Colin Kaepernick years where they were perennial playoff contenders until the roster essentially fell apart and management kind of started to get into rocky waters, and that led to him going back to the college ranks, joining Michigan as their head coach, and he had about a decade-long tenure there, and that most recently resulted in a national championship for the Wolverines. I want to quickly talk about the sign-stealing scandal at Michigan, because I don't think that it is irrelevant now that he's in the NFL, but I don't think that it is the most relevant thing. I would just like to address it. I don't think it carries a ton of weight going into the NFL. Obviously, there have been examples of coaches that leave the college ranks that join the NFL that aren't particularly affected. Pete Carroll comes to mind when he left USC to join the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think it'll, trail behind him unless there is significant trouble during his tenure with the Chargers. So overall, I think it's just kind of like a footnote in the story, but I think it should be acknowledged because it was a pretty big story of the Michigan Wolverines this year. Bigger story for the Wolverines, obviously, is they won the national championship, went undefeated. Team was excellent, and that's where we really get into what I like about this hiring, because we'll talk about the Justin Herbert proponent in a minute, but I think actually what's going to be even more critical about this hire is that Harbaugh's recent experience in the college ranks is going to give him and his staff a major heads up when it comes to the next few draft classes and even the past few draft classes that have come through the NFL. Obviously, they do recruiting. They see a lot of the top talent in the country coaching at Michigan. That's going to give them really good insight into future players. And I mean, as a new head coach, your job is to essentially build up the roster that you want. That means a lot of young and, more importantly, cheap talent that you already have a leg up on in terms of analyzing and studying them. You might have a personal relationship with a kid that might be, he might have gone to a different school, but maybe you recruited him heavily and he remembers the kind of ethos of what your coaching philosophy is, and he might have his interest piqued, and if he doesn't go in the draft to another team, that's a nice UDFA signing that you can have on your roster. Maybe there's some guys that are in recent draft class that are coming up on the end of their rookie contract. They might not be satisfied with how they're being used in their current situation, and maybe Harbaugh's like, you know what, I remember recruiting that kid, or I remember playing against him when I was coaching at Michigan, and I think that he's got more juice in the tank than other franchises are seeing. I just think that him, and importantly, he's bringing some of his staff from Michigan with him, so that's more people under that college umbrella that have had direct communication or have scouted these guys. I just think you're going to see a market improvement in draft hits for the Chargers, and I really think that is where the most significant change is going to be for this roster. I think a lot of people are looking at it from the Justin Herbert component, which is totally understandable. He's the best player on your roster. He's a franchise quarterback. It can't be understated how much he needed a quality head coach that's going to be there for the long haul. And Harbaugh's experience playing as a quarterback, I think, is going to be essential in that relationship. But more importantly, because he is an established, credible commodity, it shows Herbert, who is signed long-term with the Chargers, that they are doing everything in their power to get him the help that he needs. And I think that is actually the most important part of hiring a guy like Harbaugh. Yes, you want that valuable experience because you want him to succeed, but I almost think it's more important that Herbert feels like you're trying. And this is a swing. This is not a, hey, we're going to go get this hotshot coordinator that may or may not work out. This is, hey, we are getting a proven commodity. This is an NFL royal family member, essentially, if you look at it that way. A ton of experience, has experience at your position, can help you in that way. And the other thing that's important is Herbert is not a super high-profile guy. Doesn't seem to me like he loves the limelight, that he's all about being the face of the team. Harbaugh provides you almost a shield in that way because he is now kind of the face of this team. That's just how some of these things work. Sometimes, even if you are the level of player that Justin Herbert has proven himself to be, and he's excellent, don't get me wrong, but some guys just don't like the limelight like that. And having a coach that commands the media attention and fan attention like a Harbaugh does, that takes that pressure that is sometimes thrust onto you as the quarterback of a franchise. And I think that's also going to be something nice that Herbert really enjoys about having Harbaugh as his new head coach. Obviously, we have to wait until the draft and free agency, which is going to kick up now the Super Bowl's over, to really get a beat on how things are going. But, I mean, I've made it no secret that I really like this hire. I talked before this whole hiring cycle even began. The second that they fired Staley, I said that they should go after Harbaugh. I think that was the right choice for them. I am partially surprised that the Spanoses put up the money that was necessary to bring him back to the NFL. But at the end of the day, it's good for all football fans if now back-to-back Super Bowl champion Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have a legit contender in their division. And I think Jim Harbaugh being hired as the Chargers head coach makes the Chargers next in line for that position. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you like this content, and like the video if you're here because you listened to me all the way through, or dislike the video if you didn't like what I had to say. Any feedback helps. Really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Take care.